and welcome. On behalf of the University of California, I want to thank you for joining in to today's edition of the UC Virtual Career Series. My name is Yvette Gullatt, and I have the pleasure of serving as the university's Vice Provost for Diversity and Engagement, as well as the Interim Vice President for Student Affairs. I'm also very fortunate to have had a wonderful 30-year career at the University of California as an alum of the UC Berkeley campus. So around the globe, UC graduates are making an impact in every possible field. And we're pleased to have an opportunity today to focus on careers with the University of California, because the University of California is the top employer of UC graduates. And I think you'll find that today's panelists, the ones you're about to meet, are going to provide you with not only excellent advice, but I hope you find them inspirational as they provide insights and perspectives to help you with your careers. So our panelists are coming to us from across the state. They are especially impressive, I think, because they are truly committed to the University of California community, and they have a lot to share with you. The program that you're part of today is part of a larger UC-wide effort to unite and support our alumni across all of our 10 campuses. And so we want to equip you with information, with insights, with connections that are necessary for you to launch and grow or expand your career. So after today's event, I hope that you'll give us feedback so that we can continue to improve and offer a high quality webinar series to you. You'll get a survey link when we're all finished that you can give your feedback. We want to hear your thoughts. We want to hear your ideas on what will really support your career and your professional development. You'll also have the opportunity today to ask questions of our panelists. You can do that by clicking the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, or by sending us questions through email at alumni@ucop.edu. And we're going to try to answer as many questions as possible during the event. So now I'd like to introduce you to today's panelists. First, we have David Odato, who serves as the Associate Vice Chancellor of Human Resources at UC San Francisco, where he is also the Senior Vice President of Human Resources for UCSF Health. We have Gwynn Benner, who is a UCLA alumna, and she's currently the Assistant Vice Provost of Student Success and the co-director of the First Generation Initiative at UC Santa Cruz. And then also joining us today is Donna Salvo, who is the Executive Director of Systemwide Talent Management for the University of California. So panelists, thank you for being here today. And with that, let's get started with our first question. And this is one that I'm going to ask all of you to answer, starting with David. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Ready, great. Okay, so the focus of today's session is careers with UC. Can you tell the audience more about your background and your current role with the University of California?
Sure. I think I'm probably a good example of what a career at UC can be. I actually started at Mount Zion Hospital in we called it the personnel department back in the day, as a temp clerk back in 1985. And I ended up having a great opportunity to be a generalist there, and UCSF actually purchased Mount Zion 5 years later, and I thought I'd be out of a job, but here I am 35 years later, having gone from the clerk in the personnel department to the head of the department. So I think that tells you things are really possible at UC. I've had some interesting experiences. We had a ill-fated merger with Stanford back a while ago, and then we unwove that. Which was even harder. But, and then I took on the university side, the campus side, about 8 years ago. So I guess it just goes to show you that there's so many opportunities that you see. You can have a whole career here with so many different experiences.
Great, thank you, David. And how about you, Gwynn?
Well, first I want to say thank you and hi, everybody. I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to speak with you all today. And I want to thank Yvette and Kristen and then Deanna for organizing this. I think these kinds of things are really helpful for those who are interested in employment in the university and beyond. And so really excited about using technology to reach out to so many folks. I'm a UCLA alum. Super proud of my Bruin traditions. Got a BA in English and American Literature, which goes to show that degree in the humanities actually will get you somewhere. I've had a really exciting and rewarding career. I've been in 8 unique professional jobs with 10 unique employers in 4 different states. Professionally, I worked in a nonprofit doing U.S.-Mexico border work for a number of years, and then was selected to work at the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency as their U.S.-Mexico border coordinator under the Clinton administration. I got married and began to follow my faculty husband, which led to interesting East Coast experience, and then finally landed at UC Davis, where I spent 9 years. I was in various positions there at Davis, starting out as a contract employee, so I can maybe describe that to folks later on in the Q&A. Now I'm serving at UC Santa Cruz in super exciting position as Assistant Vice Provost for the Division of Student Success, and I'll talk more about that later. And I guess I want to say that the thing that knits all of this work in my life and career is really a passion for supporting folks and ensuring equitable educational access.
Great, thank you, Gwynn. And Donna, how about you?
Thank you, Yvette, and thank you, everyone, and to my colleagues that have joined on the panel as well. It's a pleasure to and an honor to sit on the panel with everyone and be at here at UC doing some really wonderful things for the organization. I've had probably 30 plus years in human resources. However, not all within UC. I come from, UC is the first higher education, public higher education environment that I joined 8 years ago. But prior to that, in other private sector areas and opportunities with organizations in manufacturing and financial services and insurance, in banking. And so a cadre of experience externally, but always in the human resources areas. As a senior vice president and vice president for many of those organizations, worldwide and global HR background. 8 years ago, I came to the university as a consultant from the outside, taking a look at best practices for system-wide human resources. And as a result, we created the system-wide talent management focus, and that is really focused around the development and interconnectivity of a life cycle for an employee while they're at the university. So your career journey at the university. And so I'm thrilled because that is a passion of mine to attract talent into the university, develop that talent in the university for greater and bigger things for them and for the university. And how do we retain our talent and mobility at the university? That being said, my role today also includes recruitment of our very most senior level executives across the university. The last 8 chancellor searches and direct reports into the president's office that have been added to the organization. I've overseen those recruitment processes and those search committees that have launched for each of the campuses that we filled chancellors over the last 8 years in. Sorry, my light just went off. But I'm thrilled to be here and hopefully can bring some tips and tricks to the organization about how to land jobs at the university.
Great, thank you, everyone. So for our second question, you've each described both the depth and breadth of your careers, both at the university and beyond. So starting with Gwynn, based on your personal experiences, how would you describe the work culture at UC?
That's a great question. I think the unifying factor across all of our campuses is a teaching and research commitment. All of the campuses are different and unique. I've had now an opportunity to be on all of the campuses and To be honest, I think there are three factors that influence work culture. The ones that stand out are the geography, the campus size, and then access to resources. I also think the surrounding community impacts where we live. And so those are all factors that I think really impact how we live and breathe here as employees. One of the things that is unique about UC Santa Cruz is we're in the Redwoods. We're by the ocean. We have wide open spaces. It takes 15 to 20 minutes to get across campus. A lot of our meetings as a result are on Zoom. We have protected landscapes, and so we have deer and fox and coyotes and raccoons. In fact, just yesterday there was a wild turkey that was pecking at my window. And Hank the turkey at UCSC is a thing, so go Facebook it. You can see it. It's got his own website. And I think this sort of urban international students who come to our campus really have to adjust to the isolation. The size makes a difference. UC Santa Cruz has about 18,000 students. We don't have a professional school. We don't have a medical school. And again, I think that also changes the way the work culture is, and particularly in my division of student success. We're highly, highly collaborative here, and I believe I see that across all of the campuses and system-wide as well.
Great, thank you, Gwynn. So Donna, you have been with the university for 8 years, and you also have the opportunity to have insight into our recruitment and the positions we're hiring for. So the same question for you. How would you describe the work culture at UC from your perspective?
So I would say I would agree with Gwynn in the sense of collaborative. One of our biggest focuses that over the last few years has been around a people management conference to build and foster the collaborative communications and efforts of leadership and managers and supervisors and how to lead teams. I would say that innovation comes to mind. So the culture is, and agility. Given all the changes that we face as an organization, I see that many, call it cultural competencies and things needed across the university, and what people demonstrate are around the collaborative and transparency areas, fostering engagement. So how to keep employees engaged and how to open up the different vehicles of communication. Strongly, a organizational cultural component is influencing. We do a lot of work through influencing and partnering with others. And so I would say those rise to the top as I talk about or look at the culture, particularly when a candidate is asking questions about, tell me a little bit about the culture of UC. So our mission and vision of the organization is a top of mind, but then what are the underlining supporting pillars underneath that, along with the focus on diversity and respect and a very collegial environment. So I will leave it at that.
Great, thank you, Donna. And David, your career has run the gamut from clerical all the way through senior management. So same question for you. How would you describe the work culture given all that you've seen and all of the roles that you've held?
Well, first, I agree with my co-panelists with what they were saying about collaboration and influence. I think and that sort of transcends all the campuses. One of the things in my job that I enjoy is actually interacting with my colleagues at the other UC campuses, and we're all different, slightly different, but all kind of with the same ultimate mission. And what I think is so great is to be able to benefit from learning from each other in this great system that we have. Now at UCSF, we're a little bit unique in that it's a health science campus, so we don't have 20,000 students. We have very few students actually, but we've got 24,000 employees and faculty. And I think also Gwynn spoke to this a little bit too. We're in a very urban setting, and we're all over the city. In fact, we're the second largest employer in San Francisco outside of the city and county of San Francisco. And so we're everywhere, and our vans are everywhere, and we actually built a second campus halfway across town, and it creates all kinds of interesting challenges in terms of getting around. But I would say at UCSF, in addition to the strong research and teaching components, of course, we've got the patient care element too. And I think the faculty and staff really bond to that mission, whether you're directly doing it or supporting it.
Great, thank you, David. So now I'm going to ask you to put your hiring hats on and to go kind of specific here. Starting with Donna, can you describe to us a candidate who really stood out to you and what they did to grab your attention?
Absolutely. And so I'm going to talk both external and internal candidates here for a moment. In all cases, I think the candidate, and it's not just one, it's what I've seen successfully demonstrated by candidates. I think that a candidate that does their homework sticks out far above someone who does not. So what I mean by that is someone that if they're going to be meeting with a panel of interviewees, that they do their homework on who they're meeting with, that they do their homework on the organization, that they've done a little homework on the position that they're applying for, and they come to the table with a number of questions about the position and how it actually fits within the organization. What I see is the most successful candidates that do their homework and have networked in some way to understand the job and where it fits into, become those that rise to the top of the cream of the crop from the interviewing panel, mostly. Others that internally that prepare yourselves, not just because you are at UC and applying for a job internally, prepare yourselves as if you're coming from externally to UC. Have those same similar questions available. Put your best foot forward and really sell yourself. So it is what not only you can bring to the table, but understand how UC can benefit from your transferable skills into the different jobs, where you can connect transferable skills into the job that you're applying for. And so I've seen those be the best candidates that come to mind.
Great, thank you, Donna. Same question for you, David. Who stood out and why?
So I was going to respond very similarly to Donna. I think it's that doing your homework really does make sense. In fact, I had a candidate recently who not only studied the job and the organization and asked really good questions, but actually looked me up on social media and knew something about me. And I thought, it's a little disturbing in a sense, but not really in the modern day because it's all out there, and good for him for having done that. And I think that really does show a hiring manager that someone is really interested and is really wanting that position.
David. Thank you, David. And Gwynn, you work in an area where there's a lot of interest. People want to come to the university to support students. So tell us how a candidate who's really stood out to you and why.
Sure. And also maybe I can describe a little bit of our process for selection. I think it probably feels a bit like a black box when you apply online. It's very impersonal. You spend all this time filling in the boxes. You get your resume, your cover letter, maybe that letter reference from someone else, and then there's sort of crickets and it's silent. Well, on our end, what we're doing is the application materials are getting screened. A committee is being formed. We always hire by committee if it's a professional position. Oftentimes we'll have a committee that includes folks from outside the division, and in fact we encourage that. We're looking for a diverse pool. If you can talk about strengths around working with students who have diverse backgrounds, that's going to make a difference. I echo everything that Donna and David said about come prepared. I want to know why you want to work for me here at UCSC specifically. And inevitably, if you get an interview, you're going to get a question that says, why do you want this job? Or what makes you the most qualified for this job? Why UCSC specifically? So the more you know and can articulate about our mission, our differences, our location, I think the other factor for us is somebody who can afford living here. As I said, the geography really matters. It's really expensive living in the Santa Cruz area. And so having done some research so you can speak to, especially if you would potentially be moving, to the fact that you get it, you can do it, you've got that figured out, I think that matters. So the kinds of things we look for in a candidate specifically would be someone who's paying attention to the whole student, both inside and outside the classroom. And I'll talk maybe a little bit more about what we mean around that. Educational equity and access, what does that mean to you? Somebody who's innovative, a team player, problem solver, a good communicator, and really can clearly articulate a passion for their work. And I gotta say, something I look for particularly is curiosity and someone who's a lifelong learner.
Great, thank you, Gwynn. So for those of you who've tuned in a few minutes, we're going to be addressing your questions. So please remember to submit them using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen or by sending them through email to alumni@ucop.edu. So next I want to turn to applying to UC and following up on what Gwynn has described as part of the process in her organization. So Donna, if someone wants to apply to a job at the University of California, what should they do?
Well, there's multiple ways to apply for jobs at the University of California. First off, there's a slide that I would like to share with, a couple slides that I'd like to share with you. And what is coming up on the screen right now is a system-wide job board. This system-wide job board you can find through the UC website and UCOP websites, and it connects to all of our staff jobs. Faculty are actually, there's a link to faculty jobs and academic personnel jobs. But what this allows you to do is to search any or all locations across the university. 8 years ago, as I mentioned, when I first came into the university, there was a initiative to bring all of the campus job openings into one collective job site. And this is what this job site was designed to do. And just to let you know, in 2018, we had over close to 800,000 visits to the site. And the most searched jobs within the organization were around communications, director, research manager, analyst, police, finance, accounting, nurses, and library as some that rise to the top of the most searched jobs. But on this job site, what we highlight on a regular basis, and it rotates, are jobs that we spotlight that are open. In this case, the one that you're seeing, they're all here at the Office of the President, but they are system-wide jobs. We will rotate them. We will get those jobs given to us from the campuses, and we will post them here. But you can do a job search by keyword or by locations. Additionally, you can also share jobs with others as you see something that you may know somebody is looking for. I will tell you the most searched locations, the most searched have been Berkeley, Davis, San Francisco, and then all on the job site since 2018. So in answer to how do you apply, you can reach and connect to any job that is a staff job and connect to the academics through the link to academics through the system-wide job board. Or you can go directly to the location you're interested in and pull up those openings as well at that specific location. But this will give you a picture either by location or by a word search. So if you have an area of interest. So the next slide that I want to share with you is also something that you probably all are familiar with, and that is LinkedIn. So with LinkedIn, we have an agreement for LinkedIn to what's called scrape all of our jobs across the system off of our job board and post them on LinkedIn as well. And the page that I'm showing you is the UC homepage on LinkedIn. And you can see that in this screenshot, it talks about there's a sidebar that highlights jobs at the University of California. And right now we have 7,000, according to this, over 7,000 job openings at the UC. And so you can also apply to UC jobs through the LinkedIn postings as well. And if you haven't networked with LinkedIn, and created a job profile on LinkedIn, I would strongly suggest doing that to build your network as well. Also on here, just from an alumni perspective, there is also a button on the left under jobs that houses our alumni and chat boxes for alumni on LinkedIn as well. So we try to partner with not only LinkedIn, but other job posting or resume job posting organizations such as Indeed, Monster, that outline different career categories for looking at careers at UC. And many of our locations will post their jobs on those career sites as well. The next slide that I have for you all is, and we get lots of questions, how do I adequately prepare myself for applying for a job at the university? And what are the tools and tricks and tips for us? So I want to share with you a resource that the university has invested in called My UC Career. It is open to any staff, faculty, students, alumni with a URL or UC extension email address. So donna.salvo@ucop.edu, or as an example. You can log into this, and this is a wonderful site to prepare you for how to create your resume, how to create a cover letter, how to discover your career path, and providing you with tips and tools around your career opportunity. Today we have over 7,000 users in this system since it launched in January 2018 to help employees at the university in their next step of their career at the university. It is an online self-directed development portal, and the resources and tools are really there to create and refine your resume, identify your strengths, practice interviewing. There's a practice piece for interviewing, finding professional networking opportunities, as I think that's a really key when you're in a job search, is who have you networked with, and it doesn't cost you anything to do it, so it is free to everybody. Hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you, Donna. So now turning to David and UC's health enterprise, what kinds of opportunities exist within UCSF Health? And then do all roles require advanced medical training?
That's a great question. Certainly there are roles within the UC Health systems across the state that do require certain training, to be a nurse or physician's assistant or obviously a physician. But there's a lot of other roles in the UC health systems because they have HR people, they have IT people, they have finance people. So it's really quite diverse. I think there was a question about physician assistants, and we certainly do hire them across the health systems. We may actually hire them in some of the student health services as well, but it is a very valued role in the health system itself. You know, I wanted to also comment on something that Gwynn mentioned about the black hole syndrome. You know, at UCSF, we get 140,000 applicants a year. That's a lot of people. And we fill about 4,500 jobs every year. And we've really identified that we don't have enough recruiters to really manage this well. And so I'm happy to report that our Chancellor just approved 5 more recruiters, which I hope will help the applicant experience and the hiring manager experience in terms of recruitment, you know, as we go forward.
Great, thank you, David. Turning to Gwynn, you've talked a little bit about your team and its focus on student success. So can you tell us more about the kinds of roles that sit within your team and the qualifications you're looking for people who are working in student-focused career positions?
Sure, thanks for the question. You can read more about the Division of Student Success online. Our mission, our values, and our vision are up online for anybody to read. Do that if you're applying. As you'll see in the mission, we pay attention to the whole student, and we're trying to do something a little different than a traditional student affairs division, which typically will focus on the what we would call campus life aspect of the students, you know, extracurricular, out of classroom, living, learning, communities, first year experience. And we're basically trying to say what's happening inside the classroom impacts outside the classroom and vice versa. And we need to be thinking about the whole student. If you got here, it's our job to get you through. And I think that makes our experiment, we'll call it, a little unique. And so I think what we're looking for in candidates are folks that understand that mission and the commitment to educational access and equity. We also in our division focus and support grad students and undergrad students. Oftentimes you don't see that kind of support happening in a traditional student affairs division. As a result of that, the cross collaborations on our campus are incredibly important because we have an undergrad education division, we have a graduate student division, and without those very strong partners, we couldn't do our work. So another quality that we look for in candidates is someone who can work collaboratively, team approach, understands the importance and value of partnerships. In our division, we have over 200 employees, and inside that is health and wellness, our affinity and student orgs, tutoring support, EOP, educational opportunity programs. We're an HSI, a Hispanic Serving Institution. We have a Dean of Students that sits in our division as well. And then one of the unique things about our campus is in our division, we have the Student Success Equity Research Center. And that's a center with PhDs and postdocs and undergrads as well, who are evaluating our work to see how effective the programs are that we are implementing. And they have a whole data research component and evaluation component. So some of the very specific things to think about if you were to apply in the student field is advising. Entry-level positions are high, nursing, we've got optometry, we've got a full-service student health center, etc.
Great, thank you, Gwynn. So the next question is for Donna, and I want to pick up on something that Gwynn mentioned earlier, that sometimes applicants, after they apply to us, they hear crickets. So can you talk to us about the time frame? So from posting the job ad to the first day of work, what's the average amount of time for that process?
Thanks, Yvette. Sure, I can. I think it's going to be different depending upon what the position is in the organization. That we have multiple positions that we hire multiple people for the similar or same type of position. So as an example, maybe food workers, for example, in our cafeterias and restaurants, where we will have one position but have multiple openings. And so those could stay open for a while. On average, though, I will tell you, over the last few years, we have been tracking all locations around their what we call time to accept, which is that time frame it takes from the time an individual starts in the organization, in the process of putting in their application, going through the interviews, and time to accept that job. We run approximately 100 days, so that as a little over 100 days as an average for what we call our career positions or MSP positions in the organization. That being said, crickets. So to David's point earlier that he made, our locations of a very limited amount of recruiters at the locations. And we have hundreds, if not hundreds of thousands. And I was just trying to count 2018's applications received by location. UCLA had the highest with over 400,000 applications received. So you can imagine what that means to one location that only has 5 or 6 recruiters. And that then becomes the responsibility of hiring managers to look at applications. And not to say that's an excuse, but that is a reality for us, that we don't have enough recruiters, and David's adding some, hooray, to give a good experience. We are working with our talent acquisition leaders across the system and our chief HR officers, which oversee the recruiting areas or talent acquisition areas, to talk about the importance of the candidate experience and why that's so important these days when the market is so hot with jobs and we no longer sit in a recession where we were many years ago, where we need to move quickly to bring talent into the organization. And so we are working on how to improve that experience for our candidates. So yes, I have heard the same, crickets, or that it takes a long time to hear back regarding when an application is turned in. We also have policies around how long a job is posted before we begin the interviewing process. So depending upon the job, it may be 2 or 3 weeks before we start an interviewing process at the locations. And keep that in mind also with how we look at, to make sure that and ensure that we are doing appropriate outreach to all types of individuals, that we focus on the diversity component, that we want to bring a diverse group of candidates into our pool for our openings as well.
Great, thank you, Donna. So we have a number of questions coming in from our audience, so thank you very much. Let me address this first question to you, Gwynn. What would be your advice for someone who is trying to change their career paths and who has no direct experience for a position they're applying for?
Well, I did serve at UC Davis for a number of years as I oversaw career services for master's, PhD, and postdoc. So I actually have an answer to that question. If you're changing careers, one of the best things to do is go learn as much as you can about that new trajectory. We often recommend doing an informational interview and finding out what it takes in that position. What are folks looking for? Are the skills that you have aligning? it's really helpful to hear what salary levels exist, what they hate about their job, what they love about their job. I've also seen in working with grad students at UC Davis that many of those informational interviews turned into job applications where you meet somebody, they now have a resume because you've handed one to them at one point, or they remember you, and those then become potential job opportunities or referrals. That's happened to a number of the students that I've worked with as well. I think the other things that you can do are more structural in terms of resumes. You can create a resume that's not necessarily focused on what you did in each of the jobs, but focused more on the skill set that you bring. I was working with somebody who was doing budgeting and fiscal administration and wanted to work in sustainable development and still in the campus, and she and I looked through and looked at all her qualifications and skills, not from where she was working, but how those skills could be transferable and lend themselves to a position in a completely new field. So I think there's a variety of things that you can do. There's a lot of online tools and suggestions. LinkedIn's a great source, not only for accessing UC positions, but also bolstering your resume and thinking about your transferable skills.
Great, thank you. So Gwynn, Gwynn has told us about the importance of the informational interview and the importance of multiple kinds of resumes. So this next question is for David. What are the main items or talking points that you look for in a resume or a cover letter?
Well, I think in a cover letter, making it really compelling and focused on the enthusiasm for that particular position, I think really comes through. I think in a resume, I think it's great to tailor it to, the requirements of the job so that there's a clear linkage there. And then this may sound trite, but, check the spelling and grammar errors, because I can't tell you how many we get that have those in it, and it's sort of a red flag.
Great, thank you. Donna, the next question is for you. Is it seen as a negative to apply to multiple roles at a campus around the same time? And will it be perceived as unfocused, or does it increase someone's chances of being hired?
So there's a couple of ways that I'd like to answer that. I think that it is fine if you are applying or for specific jobs that fit into what your career trajectory and plan is. If it is seen as you're just applying for everything and anything, then that is a red flag, because that does not help to influence or show your passion around where you want to go within the organization. So the question that your interview panel may ask you is, are you applying for any other roles, or are you considering any roles? And if you have multitudes of positions that you share with them, they may ask the question, well, how interested are you in doing this role with us, and why? If you show that you're applying for roles that are somewhat connected in some way in your career trajectory or what your career search plan is, then you have a way of explaining that as a result. But for it to look as if you're just applying to just be throwing your name in the hat only with nothing substantial behind those reasons, I think that actually shows as a red flag for who's interviewing you. I do want to weigh in on what Gwynn said earlier around informational interviews. It is so important, and I coach a number of people around their careers to participate in informational interviews, to do outreach, to build your network, to build your network of those that are in your field that you aspire to their roles, perhaps at senior levels or as peers across the organization. And to just have a cup of coffee with someone to talk about. So many times those discussions lead to opportunity. And I will just share with you, The last 3 roles I got weren't even posted or in my career, including the one at UC when I came in as a contractor. I picked up a phone, networked with a couple of people, found out there was a need for a role, a contractor at UC, and reached out to Dwayne Duckett directly for coffee. So it's so important that you build your network when looking for a job.
Can I add to that, Yvette?
And the next question is for you as well. So
Okay.
do you respond to Donna?
Yeah, I wanted to amplify what Donna's saying. When you apply for a position, at least on our campus, the committee that's formed to review the applications wouldn't necessarily know you applied to another position. So it's not like we're cross-checking necessarily. Our HR folks will screen the applications to make sure that you meet the qualifications for the job. But by the time it gets to the committee level, we're not double checking to see if you're applying to a position in advising an EOP versus on the academic affairs side of the house. So I don't think that's a worry or should be a worry at all. The other thing is, I want to say, Donna, completely agree with Donna. What you want to do is you want to tailor your application materials to the job. So if you can, in your resume and in your cover letter, talk about how being an EOP advisor fits within your career and your trajectory and the skill set that you have, and then talk about how a college proctor or a position in the first year experience as a lecturer, if you can make that leap and talk about those skills, that's fantastic, but tailor your materials. Don't just apply willy-nilly and everything's the same. You've just changed the job and the organization. Honestly, my advice would be to tailor and spend your time rather than applying to a whole host of positions.
Thank
and
you.
then I've got another question, I guess.
You do, and I think that's really good advice. So earlier you said that it's important for candidates to do their homework and ask questions. So that fits with this ethos of tailor, and target. So what kinds of questions have people asked that have particularly stood out from other candidates?
It's essential because you are going to, at the end of an interview, if you get to that stage, be asked what questions you have. And I typically would suggest not asking a question like, do I get a room with an office with a view? You know, what's my salary? So my proposal to you is to think about, as Donna had said, the big picture questions. What's the trajectory of student affairs as you see it on campus? How does the changing landscape nationally, especially in the Department of Education, impact student success and the student affairs world? I see this job has coordination and events planning. What kinds of skills do you think I would need to be successful? What would you think would be success if I were to be hired a year from now? Those kinds of really big picture questions let me know that the candidate's really creatively thinking about this job and their fit in that job.
Great, thank you. Donna, do you have something you want to add before we move to David?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing around questions. So I want to add, as you are being asked questions, what I see actually kills a candidacy for someone in a role is when the committee is sitting in the room with you all and the first question is asked, and it may be, why are you interested in this role and how does your background match what this role has been described to you as? And it takes a candidate 30 minutes to answer the first question. That then puts, when the whole panel has several questions to cover. So I would say, be prepared, be concise, be brief with your answers, draw examples, clear examples to the questions that are asked of you as a candidate, And then also make sure that you take some notes along the way so you can follow up, as Gwen said, at the end of the interview process to ask additional questions that may have come up. So treat it as it is a two-way street. You should be looking at us as well as us looking at you. So it should be that shared conversation back and forth.
Great, thank you, Donna. The next question is for David, and it's from a participant who has extensive experience in health administration with diversity, inclusion, and health equity, but who hasn't been getting feedback regarding positions to which the person has applied. What would you recommend?
Well, I think there's a couple of things we've talked about here. First of all, I think that you should take a good, healthy look at your resume. And again, make sure it's really tailored to the skills that these positions that you're applying for are looking for. I also think it would be great if you could get an informational interview with someone in the profession so that they could give you a good critique or give you tips on how to get in. It is unfortunate. I talked about the volume of applicants we get, so we can't give individual feedback to every applicant. And I get how that can be not very satisfactory, but I think there are things that this person could do to hopefully be more successful.
All right. So to do some outreach, do an informational interview, ask for some feedback from positions to which they've applied. Okay, good. Thank you. Donna, the next question is for you, and it's about recruiters. And you just said hooray about recruiters. So how are recruiters structured throughout the organization, and does each recruiter focus on a specific campus, organization, specialty, et cetera?
So depending upon the campus or in the medical centers, it is a little different for each what the focus of recruiters are. In some cases, there are recruiters that focus on functional areas, such as finance or human resources or legal, for example. In the medical centers, could be nurses, could be clinicians, could be doctors, physicians. It just would depend how the structure is of that particular location and their recruitment team. More so, I would say, in the medical centers and services areas, we see more centralized recruitment groups. Versus on the campus, you see some centralized recruiting teams in shared services, what we call shared services under HR's umbrella. And then you see some recruiters that sit out in other decentralized areas of schools within the campus. So it's going to really depend upon the location and how they've structured their recruiting departments. For the most part, I would say that recruiters carry what we call rec loads, and those rec loads are measured by openings. And so where one may have, let's say, 50 to 60 openings they're working on, another may not. And so they don't specifically have a functional area that they support. They may share rec loads that are made up of several different functions in the university. There is no one model that we use. We use a model that works best for the locations and for the support of the locations from a recruiting perspective.
Great, thank you. And then this last question is for Gwynn. Gwynn, as a UC alum, is it as fun to work for UC as it was to be a student here? But no, seriously, is working for UC different from your experience as a student?
Well, actually, as a transfer student to UCLA, I worked the entire time I was a student. So I don't know that I've never not worked for the UC and, since I've been in the system. I have interns that work with me on the First Gen initiative. We hire thousands and thousands of students each year. And those positions are from food services to my first gen team is actually identifying projects they want to implement and doing it soup to nuts. So the experience that we're trying to give even our student staff is pretty intense and with a great deal of ownership over the outcome. So very excited about that. I love my job. I love what I do. I love my colleagues, and the work for me is probably more essential, I think, now than any time ever. I think supporting all of the students and the diverse students that we have on our campus is critical. And so I wouldn't do anything else, frankly. And being an employee and having this opportunity is just, it's a gift, frankly.
Great, thank you. So we've heard a lot today as we close out, and we apologize we can't get to all the questions, but our behind the scenes team will do their best to respond to those that you have raised as an audience. So we've heard about the importance of doing homework. We've heard about targeting, tailoring, care, questions, informational interviews. I'd like to ask each of you before we close, what is one thing you really want our audience to walk away with today? Starting with David, and then moving to Gwynn and Donna. One thing you think everyone should take away?
Well, I would say just the opportunity to work at the University of California is incredible. I mean, there's such diversity, there's such opportunity. We just heard Gwynn talk about her wonderful career. And so I would encourage people to look at the university as a place to work.
Great, thank you. And how about next, Donna?
Sure. So there's always one thing that I ask at the end of interviews, and that is, tell me, is there something we didn't cover that you'd like to share with the committee? So it's your time to tell your story and to be very, very, show your passion and why you really want to do the work that you're applying to do and how that fits in with your career. I think those that prepare for that kind of a question in their career, I said, it really leaves the committee thinking about you. And that's what you want to leave your committee with.
Yeah, Donna, you and I have served on committees together, and we've talked about how disappointed we've been when people don't have anything to share. Thank you.
That's right. That's right.
How about you? Your last piece of advice.
Yeah, thanks. Again, I want to thank the panelists. It's been a great opportunity, and thank you to everybody who signed on and was there as the audience. I know there's more questions, so probably a little frustrated. What I'd say is keep applying, keep the interest high. There are thousands, as you heard from Donna, of opportunities, and come talk to us about your ideas and suggestions so that if there is something in the future that fits, we can kind of slot you in.
Great. Well, on behalf of the University of California, I want to thank you all for joining us for our April edition of the UC Virtual Careers series that has been focused on careers with the University of California. It was really a pleasure to connect with all of you virtually. I know you're really busy, and we really appreciate that you took the time today to learn more about the University of California. We do want to make sure that you take a few minutes to provide us some feedback on today's event by following the survey link which appeared when you launched the seminar, this webinar rather. You'll get a follow-up message sent out to you, and it will also include the link to the survey. So please, please, please give us that feedback. I also really want to thank today's panelists for their time, their candor, their generosity, and really your commitment to the University of California, both your experiences, your insights, your perspectives, and your advice. They make me really proud to be part of the UC community, really proud and happy to work with all of you. And I hope that many of those who are in the audience will take you up on the pieces of advice that you've provided. So thank you all for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. And thank you to all of you who've joined us. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.